Is Love is Dark worth your time? Join me as we look at this new light novel. Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's good to see you again. Today we're going to talk about Love is Dark, a brand new light novel that has been recently released by Yen Press and sent to me as a review copy for a fair and honest review. And I'm going to give you a fair and honest review because it took me a while to really get into this light novel. What's it about? Well, this is about a young man who, well, it turns out that he is an assassin. And one day, well, he's asked out by one of the most popular girls in class. That's right, it's a guy who is struggling with being a normal kid, trying to be a normal kid. I feel like I've seen that plot somewhere before. Yeah. That's right, this one immediately reminded me of one of my all-time favourites, Full Metal Panic. And immediately, if you thought the same thing, get that out of your mind because it will absolutely ruin this title for you. This is not Full Metal Panic, which is good and bad. It manages to be its own thing, which is good. I was really worried that they would try and do the same thing. Not so good is that it isn't as good as Full Metal Panic. So this is your very typical protagonist, and it's one of those things that kind of interested me because if I'm going to again compare it to Full Metal Panic, Full Metal Panic had a very distinct main character, Sosuke Sagara. He can't socialise well because he was grown up in a war world. This is a young man who grown up, well, in a crap situation and becomes an assassin and pretty much does assassin things constantly out of his time. And yeah, it's a weird one because nearly every single thing about it is the main character telling you he can't interact with normal people. He can't function as a normal, I wouldn't say adult, a normal teenager. And that's a weird one because Sosuke was he was socially awkward, but you got a bit of a laugh out of him, and you kind of saw where he was his own character. This is just kind of like your normal, typical teenage light novel character complaining that he's not a typical, average light novel character. It's very weird. And one of the things that kind of disturbed me with this one was that this focuses on being a romance and also an action thing. So we have the day-to-day school stuff with the romance, and we have on the night him being an assassin and doing assassin things. Now, first things first, the assassin side of things is absolutely fantastic. If you want the action-based stuff, that is great. The romance stuff, no. Really, no. Now there is a reason, and I'm going to be honest, it just doesn't feel genuine. It just feels like they needed to kind of give a little bit of a plot and have the main character be asked out by the most popular character girl in school. That's kind of what it feels like. It kind of feels a little bit Gary Stewish and just like, oh, nobody likes me. Oh, I'm socially awkward. But all of a sudden the most popular girl in school asks him out. And the relationship genuinely doesn't feel genuine. It feels awkward and forced. Which is an interesting plot point because it turns out that the relationship is awkward and forced. And that might be a little bit of a spoiler for later on because, yeah, it's not a great relationship, and I kind of appreciated it more once that kind of sunk in. Now, we do have another character. We have this mysterious girl character who is not actually the love interest. She's not the popular girl. She's the quiet, reserved girl who sits in the corner. And yeah, this cover might give you an idea of what's going to be happening between these characters. And I can tell you now, that all happens in the last, well, 40 pages of the volume. It's a weird one. It's one where it's kind of like, it kind of rolls around on itself. A lot of the wheels are turning, but nothing's really happening. And that happens for the first, what, 140, 150 pages of this light novel. And yeah, I mean, I can appreciate that they were setting things up so you could have an awkward relationship that doesn't pan out to before giving him an actual genuine relationship. I appreciate that. But if I'm honest, a lot of that stuff could have really been summed up, if I'm absolutely brutal. It's kind of like, yeah, you could have done that you could have just had them split up at the very beginning and then be like, oh, well, instead we get chapters upon chapters of him complaining that he's just not an average light novel protagonist while being the most generic light novel protagonist out there. But on the other hand, we're going to talk about the assassin things, because this is where this series shines, and this is what the author seems to be wanting to do. Like I said, he's an assassin. His older sister is kind of like the comms girl, and she's not exactly the nicest older sister. In fact, his family situation is rather bleak. But when we get to the action scenes, and we get a few handful of action scenes, this one is where this one shines, because it turns out, as well as being an assassin and an average kid, he's got a special power, and that power is, if he dies, he basically comes back to life. Of course, he has to acquire these extra lives by killing people. From what I understood, the amount of people he kills, so if he kills one person he gets a life back, so yeah. And that is rather important because he's not a great assassin and tends to get killed off more times than you can imagine. So yeah, there's a lot going for this, and like I said, I've been a bit hesitant with this one, but if I'm perfectly honest, the more I read about this, the more I really liked, and it keeps its cards to itself through a lot of the volume. Like I said, this first 150 pages could have been summarised in probably about 50. The last 50 pages were absolutely fantastic, and I really enjoyed them. And it kind of wanted me to check out a little bit more. Now, it's a little bit awkward because it took that long to get to me enjoying it that I'm kind of hesitant to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to run out and buy volume 2. But I will be looking at picking up volume 2 because I think it's one that I did enjoy enough to at least warrant another shot. If they are going to genuinely develop the relationship between these two characters and maybe have our main protagonists be a little less whiny, we'll get to have something incredibly great. For now, it's one that I would really recommend giving a chance and see. You know what, it's not going to be the special thing, it's not the next Full Metal Panic, it'll make you want to read Full Metal Panic, but it does manage to step out of Full Metal Panic's shadow and eventually becomes its own thing, and that is always a good thing. At least that's my opinion. Thank you to Yen Press for sending me a review copy of this, and go check out this video over here because it's another title from Yen Press that you guys might want to check out. See you over there.